I used to think my mom was the one person in the world who would always have my back. When I was little, she was my hero, the one who patched my scraped knees, kissed me goodnight, and promised me I was safe. But things changed as I grew older. Somewhere along the line, the woman who once protected me became the person who broke me the most. The bullying started small. At first, it was little digs at my appearance, the way I spoke, the way I dressed. I brushed it off, telling myself it didn't matter, that words couldn't hurt me. But words cut deeper when they're repeated every single day. They become scars you carry inside your chest. Soon, it wasn't just insults. It became laughter in the hallways, whispers behind my back, and eventually physical shoves when nobody was looking. My school days turned into battles, and every night I came home feeling like I had survived a war. And what did I want most after those long, humiliating days? Just one thing: my mom to listen, to hug me, to tell me she believed me, to say she was on my side. But instead, every time I tried to open up, her face turned cold. "Kids can be mean. You'll get through it," she'd say with a shrug. Or worse, she'd laugh, as if I was exaggerating, as if my pain was some kind of childish drama she didn't have the patience to entertain. The pain doubled when I learned the truth. My mom wasn't just ignoring me. She was actively defending the person who tormented me. I'll never forget the night I overheard her on the phone. I came into the living room, and there she was, laughing softly, her voice dripping with sympathy. "He's a good kid," she said. "He just needs guidance. My child is sensitive. Don't worry about it." My heart sank when I realized who she was talking about. She was defending him, the boy who shoved me into lockers, the one who spread lies about me, the one who made me feel worthless every single day. That moment shattered me. It wasn't just that my mom didn't believe me. It was that she believed him. She chose him. She chose my bully over her own child. I tried to reason with her. I begged her to understand, to see how much it hurt me. But the more I tried, the colder she became. And then, one night, I exploded. All the anger, the loneliness, the betrayal I had bottled up for years came rushing out like a storm. I screamed at her, my voice breaking, my chest heaving. "You are no longer my family. You're dead to me." The silence that followed was unbearable. She stared at me with wide eyes, as if she had just been struck. For a moment, I almost regretted it. Almost. But then I remembered all those nights I cried alone, all those times she defended him instead of me, all the ways she chose my bully over her own child, and the regret turned into relief. Because finally, for the first time, I had said what I truly felt. That was the breaking point. The night everything changed. The night my mom went from being my mother to being just another person who betrayed me. The moment those words left my lips. "You're no longer my family. You're dead to me." The room turned into ice. Silence wrapped around us like a suffocating blanket. I could still hear the echo of my own voice bouncing inside my skull, trembling with anger and pain. My mom stood frozen, her mouth slightly open, her eyes wide. For a split second, I thought she might shout back, slam her hands on the table, fight me with the same fire I had unleashed. But she didn't. She just stood there, silent, like she couldn't comprehend that her own child had just disowned her. I turned and walked away before she could say a word. My chest was tight, my hands still shaking, but my feet moved on their own, out of the living room, down the hallway, slamming my bedroom door shut behind me. I collapsed onto my bed, my body trembling as if I had run a marathon. The anger was still there, burning hot, but underneath it was something far heavier. Grief. Because the truth was, I hadn't just screamed at my mother. I had buried her. I had dug a grave with my words and pushed her inside. And the terrifying thing was, I wasn't sure if I could ever pull her back out. That night, I didn't sleep. My thoughts spiraled into chaos. I replayed every moment in my head, every time I'd come home in tears, every time I'd begged her to believe me, every time she laughed it off or worse, defended him. I thought about the phone call, her voice soft and protective as she spoke about the boy who had made my life miserable. My bully, the one who left me feeling like nothing. And my mom, my own mom, had called him a good kid. I felt like my whole life had been a lie. Wasn't family supposed to mean unconditional love? Wasn't a mother supposed to protect her child no matter what? That's what I had believed when I was younger. That's what she had made me believe. But sitting alone in my room that night, I realized something devastating. Sometimes family chooses appearances over truth. Sometimes the people you love most will stand against you, even when you need them the most. The next morning, the house felt different, quieter, colder. I walked into the kitchen and she was there, making coffee like nothing had happened. She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen, but she didn't speak. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just stirred her cup and sipped in silence. It was in that silence that I understood. She wasn't going to change. She wasn't going to suddenly realize the damage she had done. She wasn't going to take my side. She had made her choice long ago, and nothing I said, no amount of begging, no explosion of anger, was going to change it. That realization hurt more than anything. It wasn't the bullies at school who broke me. It was my own mother's silence, her refusal to stand by me, her decision to protect everyone but me. And so I pulled further away. I stopped talking to her. I stopped asking for her help. I stopped trying to make her see me, because what was the point of screaming into a void that only echoed back indifference? But even as I told myself I didn't need her, a part of me still did. A part of me still longed for her to knock on my bedroom door, to sit on the edge of my bed, to hold me like she used to when I was small, to say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I should have been on your side," but she never did. And every day that passed without those words felt like proof that I had been right when I screamed at her. She wasn't my family anymore. When I was a child, my mom was everything to me. I didn't just see her as my mother. I saw her as my shield, my safe place, the one person I could run to when the world felt too big and scary. I remember nights when thunderstorms rattled the windows of our small house. The thunder would crack so loud it shook my chest, and I would bury my head under the blanket, trembling. But then I'd hear the soft creak of my door opening, and there she was, my mom. She'd slip under the covers beside me, wrap her arms around me, and whisper, "It's just the sky talking. Sweetheart, you're safe. I'm here." And in that moment, it didn't matter how loud the thunder roared outside, because in her arms, I believed I was untouchable. She used to be the person who cheered the loudest at my school plays, who clapped until her hands turned red just because I had one single line on stage. She was the one who told me bedtime stories about heroes and warriors, about people who fought against impossible odds and always came out stronger. She used to look me in the eyes and say, "You're brave like them. You're my little warrior." And for the longest time, I believed her. That's the image of her I carried into my teenage years. The protector, the believer, the one person who was supposed to see my worth when nobody else did, which is why the betrayal cut so much deeper. It wasn't just that she chose my bully over me. It was that she became the exact opposite of who she once was. The woman who once shielded me from storms had now become the storm itself. The first time I realized she was drifting away from me was subtle. I came home in tears one afternoon, clutching my backpack like it was the only thing keeping me together. My bully had humiliated me in front of everyone, and I felt so small, so exposed. I expected her to comfort me, to wipe away my tears and tell me everything would be okay. But instead, she sighed and said, "You need to toughen up. Not everyone's going to be nice in life." That moment stung, but I brushed it off. I told myself maybe she was just having a bad day, maybe she didn't mean it, but then it happened again, and again. Each time I went to her, hoping for comfort, I was met with indifference or worse, dismissal. The final blow was the phone call. Hearing her defend him, hearing her say I was the sensitive one, hearing her laugh as if my pain was just some silly exaggeration. It was like watching my childhood hero rip off her mask and reveal a stranger underneath. That's the hardest part about betrayal. It doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from the people you trusted most, the ones you never imagined would turn their back on you. And so when I screamed that she was no longer my family, it wasn't just anger speaking. It was grief. It was mourning, because the mother I once knew, the one who held me during thunderstorms, the one who called me her warrior, was already gone long before those words left my mouth. After that night, after the explosion of words that neither of us could take back, the house was no longer a home. It became a battlefield, not of shouting or slammed doors, but of silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy, sharp, like glass shards scattered across the floor. You're too afraid to move because you'll only cut yourself deeper. We moved around each other like ghosts. I would come down the stairs in the morning, and she would already be in the kitchen, stirring her coffee, scrolling through her phone. Sometimes our eyes would meet, but only for a second, because both of us knew that looking too long would mean acknowledging the gaping wound between us. Meals became the worst part. Sitting across from her at the dinner table, the clinking of silverware against plates was the only sound filling the air. I used to love those dinners. We'd talk about school, about neighbors, about random little things that didn't matter, but somehow made life feel lighter. But now? We ate in silence, two strangers sharing the same table, connected by nothing but blood and the ache of what had been lost. There were moments when I thought about breaking it, about saying something, anything that might stitch the gap back together. But every time I opened my mouth, the memory of her voice came back, soft and dismissive, telling someone else how I was too sensitive. The memory of her laughter, defending the boy who broke me, and the words would die in my throat, swallowed by resentment. She tried, sometimes in her own way, leaving little notes like she used to when I was younger. Dinner's in the fridge. Don't stay up too late. But they felt empty now. They weren't gestures of love. They were survival tactics, attempts to keep the house functioning without confronting the truth. The truth was, she didn't know how to fix what had broken, and I didn't know if I wanted her to. At night, I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how bizarre it felt to live in the same house, yet feel utterly alone. To have someone who once was your closest ally become the person you avoided at all costs. I would hear her footsteps in the hallway sometimes, pausing outside my door as if she wanted to knock. But she never did, and that silence hurt more than any words she could have spoken. I started spending less time at home, staying late at school, wandering around aimlessly, just to avoid walking into that suffocating silence. Home was supposed to be a place where you felt safe, where you could exhale, but mine had become a cage, each wall echoing with everything we couldn't say to each other. And deep down, I began to realize something even darker. Maybe this wasn't just a fight we'd recover from. Maybe this silence was permanent. Maybe my mom and I would never find our way back to each other. When home stopped feeling like home, I started searching for shelter in other places. At first, I didn't even realize I was doing it. It just became a natural instinct. The moment the last school bell rang, I would drag my feet, reluctant to go back to the place where silence waited for me like a shadow. I found myself lingering at the library more often. Not because I loved books, though eventually I did, but because it was quiet in a different way. The silence there wasn't suffocating. It wasn't filled with unspoken pain. It was gentle, steady, like waves brushing against the shore. I could sit between rows of dusty shelves, lose myself in stories about people far removed from my reality, and for a few hours forget that my own story felt broken. Sometimes I'd go to my best friend's house. Their family wasn't perfect, but there was laughter there, real laughter, the kind that spilled out unexpectedly during dinner, the kind that made walls feel warm instead of cold. I remember sitting at their table, watching as their mom asked about everyone's day, as their dad teased their little brother, as they argued about who got the last slice of pizza. It was chaotic, loud, imperfect, but it was love. And every time I sat there, a guest in the middle of someone else's life, I couldn't help but wonder, why couldn't my family be like this? Why couldn't my mom fight for me, the way these parents fought for their kids? And then there was one teacher, Mr. Harris. He wasn't the kind of teacher who tried too hard to be everyone's friend, but he noticed things. He noticed when my grades started slipping, when the brightness in my answers dimmed, when I lingered in the classroom long after everyone else had left. One afternoon, he asked me a question so simple it almost broke me. "Are you okay?" No one had asked me that in months. Not like they meant it. Not like they were actually ready to listen to the answer. I didn't tell him everything, of course. How could I? But I admitted enough that things were hard at home, that I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere anymore. He didn't try to fix it, didn't bombard me with cliches or empty reassurances. He just said, sometimes the people who are supposed to protect us don't. But that doesn't mean you're unworthy of protection. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just means they failed at being who they needed to be. Not you. Those words carved themselves into me, because for the first time, someone wasn't telling me I was too sensitive. They weren't telling me to toughen up or dismissing my feelings. They were acknowledging my pain as real, as valid. And little by little, I began to see that maybe survival wasn't about fixing what was broken at home. Maybe survival was about finding pieces of safety in unexpected places. In libraries, in borrowed laughter, in the kindness of people who noticed you when others didn't. But no matter how much comfort I found outside, a part of me always ached when I walked back through the front door of my own house. Because no friend, no teacher, no borrowed family could ever replace the one thing I truly wanted, my mom. And every time I saw her across the kitchen or passed her in the hallway, the longing in my chest only grew heavier. Because love doesn't just vanish. Even when it's wounded, even when it's betrayed, it lingers. And I still loved her. I just didn't know if she still loved me enough to choose me. The silence in the house had become unbearable, but what shattered me most was the pretending. My mom and I lived under one roof, walking past each other like shadows, both of us too stubborn, or maybe too scared, to say the words that needed to be said. But the thing about silence is, it never lasts. It builds, it grows, and eventually it explodes. It happened one evening. I came home later than usual, hoping she'd already be asleep so I could sneak into my room unnoticed. But she was waiting, sitting at the kitchen table, arms crossed, eyes red-rimmed but sharp. There was a tension in the air, heavy enough to choke me. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice tight. "Out," I said flatly, dropping my bag on the floor. "Out where? You've been coming home late every day. Do you even care what this looks like?" That word, care. It lit something inside me, something that had been waiting, burning, begging to be released. Because how dare she talk about care when she hadn't cared about me when it mattered most? "Do I care?" I snapped, my voice rising for the first time in weeks. "Did you care when he laughed at me? Did you care when you defended him while I was breaking? Did you care when your own child was begging you to take their side?" Her face crumpled, just for a second, but she tried to recover. "It wasn't like that. You misunderstood. No!" I slammed my fist on the table, the sound echoing through the empty house. "I didn't misunderstand. You made a choice. You chose him over me. You chose the person who hurt me instead of the person you were supposed to protect." Tears welled in her eyes, and for the first time I saw fear there. Not fear of me, but fear of the truth she couldn't run from. "I was trying to keep the peace," she whispered. "Peace!" My voice broke, trembling between rage and heartbreak. "Do you know what your peace cost me? It cost me trust. It cost me safety. It cost me you." Her tears spilled over then, and she covered her face with her hands. I thought I was doing the right thing. I cut her off, my chest heaving. The right thing would have been standing with me, not him, not anyone else. Me. The room was spinning. My throat burned. I had imagined this moment so many times, screaming at her, forcing her to see my pain. And now that it was here, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like collapse. Because the truth wasn't just that she had betrayed me. The truth was that I still wanted her. I still wanted my mom. I still wanted her arms around me, telling me she was sorry, telling me she loved me more than anything, telling me she would never make me feel invisible again. But instead, all I saw was a broken woman, crying at the kitchen table, and for the first time I realized she wasn't unshakable. She wasn't the perfect mother I had once believed in. She was human, fragile, flawed, and failing. And that hurt even more than the betrayal itself. The house felt different after that night. Not louder, not softer, just heavier. The words I had thrown across the table still hung in the air like smoke after a fire, impossible to breathe without coughing. My mom and I avoided each other more than ever, but this time it wasn't just avoidance, it was survival. I stayed in my room longer. I ate dinner alone when she wasn't looking. Sometimes I'd hear her crying behind her bedroom door, soft and muffled, and I hated that it made me feel guilty. Because hadn't I earned the right to scream? Hadn't I earned the right to finally release the storm I had been holding in for months? And yet, the guilt came anyway. Because no matter what had happened, she was still my mom. The same woman who once sang me to sleep, who kissed my scraped knees, who held me when I was scared of thunderstorms. The betrayal didn't erase the love, it just twisted it into something painful, something sharp. At school, I wore a mask. I laughed at jokes, answered questions, pretended I was fine. But when I caught myself daydreaming, it wasn't about escape anymore. It was about what I had said, the way my voice had cracked when I told her she had failed me, the way her tears had fallen like she was finally realizing it, maybe for the first time. One evening, I found myself staring at a photo on my desk. It was of us, me as a little kid, her arms wrapped around me, both of us smiling so wide it almost hurt to look at. That picture felt like a ghost, a reminder of who we used to be before walls were built, before trust shattered. I wondered if we could ever get back to that, if forgiveness was possible, if forgiveness was even fair. But the hardest part wasn't deciding whether I could forgive her. The hardest part was facing the truth that forgiveness wouldn't undo the past. It wouldn't erase the nights I cried alone. It wouldn't erase the moment she chose someone else's comfort over my pain. Forgiveness, if it came, would only be a bridge to something new, something different than what we had before. And the question that haunted me was simple, but terrifying. Did I even want that bridge? Or was it safer to burn it and walk away forever? Days turned into weeks, and the silence between us became routine. We were two people coexisting, orbiting around the same house but never colliding. And honestly, I thought this would be forever. I thought I'd graduate, leave, and never look back. But one night, something shifted. I came home late again, exhausted from wandering around town just to avoid the house. When I pushed the door open, I smelled something I hadn't smelled in a long time, my favorite meal, spaghetti with garlic bread. It used to be our comfort dinner, the one she'd make after a hard week when she wanted to cheer me up. The kitchen table was set, 2 plates, 2 glasses of water. She was standing there, nervously folding a napkin over and over, like she didn't know what to do with her hands. "I made dinner," she said quietly, her voice unsteady. I froze in the doorway. It was such a small thing, but it felt enormous. A gesture, maybe even an apology, though no words like that came out of her mouth. Part of me wanted to walk away, to keep my armor up, to protect myself from disappointment. But the smell of the food, the sight of her standing there waiting, it cracked something in me. Against my will, I sat down. The meal was awkward at first. We ate in silence, the clink of silverware the only sound. But then she cleared her throat. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, her voice trembling. I don't want to lose you completely." The words hit me harder than I expected, because as much as I wanted to be angry, as much as I wanted to hold on to that righteous fire, the truth was, I didn't want to lose her either. I didn't respond. Not yet. My throat felt tight, and I knew if I spoke, my voice would break. But something softened in the room that night. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't forgiveness. It was just a crack in the wall, a fragile attempt at reaching across the distance. When I finally stood up to leave the table, she whispered, almost to herself, "I love you." I didn't say it back. I couldn't. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a stranger in my own home. In the days that followed, the house felt different. The silence was still there, but it wasn't as sharp. It didn't cut as deeply. It was more like a wound, beginning to scar over. Still tender, still raw, but not bleeding anymore. I thought about her words every night. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just don't want to lose you completely." They replayed in my head over and over, fighting against the memory of her betrayal. It was like a battle inside me. One side screaming that I should hold on to my anger, that I deserved better than half-hearted attempts. the other side whispering that maybe, just maybe, love was worth trying for. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in the park, watching families pass by, kids running ahead, parents chasing after them, laughter filling the air. And I wondered, would I ever have that again with her? Or was that version of us gone forever? When I went home that evening, she was waiting for me again, this time not with dinner, but with a photo album. She placed it gently on the table between us. "I was looking through these," she said, her voice low, "and I realized how much I've lost, how much I've failed." She pushed the album toward me. Inside were pictures of birthdays, holidays, silly selfies, little moments that felt like lifetimes ago. My chest tightened as I flipped through the pages, memories colliding with the present in a way that made my eyes sting. Finally, I closed the book and looked at her. She looked small, smaller than I had ever seen her, like all the walls she had built to protect herself had finally crumbled. And that's when I realized the choice wasn't about her. It was about me, about what kind of person I wanted to be. Did I want to carry this weight forever? Or did I want to put it down, even if it didn't erase the pain? I took a deep breath, my hands shaking. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet," I said slowly. "But I don't want to keep hating you. I don't want this to be the end of us." Her lips trembled, tears slipping down her face. That's all I needed to hear. It wasn't a resolution. It wasn't closure. But it was a choice, the first step towards something uncertain, fragile, and maybe, just maybe, worth saving. The days after that conversation didn't magically heal everything. We didn't suddenly go back to laughing in the kitchen or watching movies on the couch like nothing had happened. No, trust doesn't work like that. Love doesn't work like that. But there was a shift, a fragile, careful shift. We started small, short conversations, shared meals that weren't as tense as before. Sometimes we talked about safe things, weather, errands, schedules. Other times, silence filled the air again, but it wasn't the suffocating silence of before. It was bearable. And every now and then, she tried. She asked how my day was and actually listened. She gave me space when I needed it. She didn't push. For me, the hardest part was letting go of the anger I had held so tightly. Anger had been my armor, my fuel, my shield. Without it, I felt exposed, vulnerable. But slowly, I realized I didn't need to carry it forever, because carrying it meant staying chained to the hurt. One night, weeks later, we sat outside on the porch together. The stars were out, quiet and endless, and for the first time in so long, I felt calm sitting next to her. She whispered, "I know I'll never undo what I did, but I want to spend the rest of my life proving that you come first, that I see you, that you matter more than anyone else ever could." I didn't cry. I didn't say anything dramatic. I just looked at her, and for the first time, I believed her. Maybe not completely, maybe not unconditionally, but enough to take another step forward. And that's when I realized something important. Family isn't just blood. Family is who shows up, who fights for you, who chooses you, even after mistakes, even after broken trust. That night, I didn't say, "You're forgiven." I didn't say, "I love you." But I did something I hadn't done in months. I leaned my head on her shoulder. It was small. It was quiet. But it was everything. Because sometimes healing doesn't come in grand gestures or perfect apologies. Sometimes it comes in fragile moments, in the choice to stay, in the willingness to rebuild, brick by brick, moment by moment. And in that fragile silence with the stars above us, I realized maybe this wasn't the end of our story. Maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of a new one. When I look back now, I don't see just the pain. I see the cracks where light managed to break through. I see the moments where anger could have ended everything. But instead, a tiny spark of love survived. I used to believe family was permanent, that no matter what happened, blood would always hold us together. But I learned the hard way that isn't true. Family can hurt you. Family can betray you. Family can make choices that leave scars so deep you'll never be the same. But I also learned something else. Family can be rebuilt, not as the picture-perfect dream we imagine, but as something raw, flawed, and real. It's not about the title of mom or dad. It's about who is willing to fight for you, who is willing to admit their mistakes, who is willing to choose you over and over again, even after everything falls apart. The truth is, my mom failed me in the moment I needed her most. That wound will never vanish. But she also chose to face the weight of her failure, to stand in the ashes and ask, "Can we try again?" And that takes strength too. So maybe family isn't about never falling. Maybe it's about the courage to stand up after the fall, to look each other in the eye and say, "We're broken, but we're not done." And if you're listening to this, if you've ever felt betrayed by the people you thought would protect you most, I want you to know something. Your pain is real. Your anger is valid, but you also get to decide how the story ends, whether with bitterness or with a new beginning. For me, it didn't end with an apology. It didn't end with a perfect resolution. It ended with a fragile choice to try, to believe that love, though scarred, could still grow. And maybe that's enough.